Okay guys, so we got the regulator stripped out of the gun here, and we've got it stripped. So you've got your regulator body, your regulator set screw or your adjustment screw, and your regulator piston. Here you've got your bevel washers. High pressure air comes in from your bottle through this little hole here, out through here, through into this little hole in your adjustment screw, and then out of the little hole in your adjustment screw. Air travels through the little hole in the piston, out the back to fill your plenum. These two faces here are the mating faces which seal your regulator. Basically it's a shut-off valve. If these two faces are not polished and sealed, you'll get regulator creep. This lower O-ring also causes regulator creep. It can cause a couple of bar, or it can fail completely and it can match whatever your tank pressure is. So you've got 250 bar in your high pressure tank, your regulator can also match your tank pressure. So for the sake of the replacement of two of these little 2x1mm O-rings, just replace them. But it's these two faces here which are the critical mating part, which prevents regulator creep. Okay guys, so moving on, you've got this 3M microfiber cloth that I use. You can get it from various places in the UK and the States. I'll put a link in the description. Basically you've got from coarse, various different grits, all the way down to ultra fine. It's down to microns, very fine. It's not very abrasive. It's perfect for this sort of work. Basically all we're doing is polishing or lapping, whichever way you want to look at it. All we're going to do is start from the most coarse and work our way through the grits down to the most finest one. For those of you that don't know, don't use sandpaper. You've been warned. Basically if you use sandpaper, you can get sand or glass material embedded in the black piston, or even in the adjuster screw, and it's just not the right material for the job. Like I say, you can virtually contaminate your work with sand and glass and you'll be forever trying to get the scratches out. So use the right stuff and it'll make your job a lot easier. So what you can do is, when you start polishing your adjuster screw, quick tip, especially if you've got sausage fingers like me, is to put the reg screw backwards in the regulator body, and it gives you a more secure hold. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start sanding in a circular, side to side, and like in an S or figure 8 motion, while spinning the valve regulator body, and that'll make sure that you've got a perfect polish throughout. I've put some pictures in before and I'll put some in afterwards. I'm not going to bore you with the whole process going through the various grits, but start off on the most coarse and work your way through to the most finest. So I've brought you back and we're on the most finest now, which is like 12,000 grit or something. It's you know, it's less coarse than sort of like A4 writing paper. So all we're doing now is just giving it the last final polish, figure of 8s, S shapes, while spinning, doing this motion, and all we're doing is looking at getting all the imperfections out of the brass adjuster screw. And like I say, I'll put some before and after pictures up just so you can see what's going on. You can clearly see in the before and after photos the difference here. This particular regulator was very bad condition. You'll see from the before photographs where the damage was and where the tracking part of the high pressure air was crossing the set screw. It's very clear, you'll see, and I'll attach the photos in this video. What I always do with mine as well is I remove these 2x1 O-rings. You don't have to do this, but if you're removing the O-rings you may as well. And that's cut a very small piece of microfiber cloth and polish these grooves. You're not removing material, you're just removing any burrs. It'll just make your O-rings last longer, and it'll make installing and removing the O-rings just that little bit easier. Most of the time they're pretty smooth anyway, but it is just worth doing. Okay, so we're going to work on the black piston now. Again, I've put some before photos and I'll put some after in them as well. Like I say, this is the critical phase here. You won't be able to see it on this camera, but this is the sealing phase. So basically we're going to polish this in the same manner using the microfiber cloth, going from coarse through to the finest stuff. We're going to do the same, put like a very small dome on this, and this will be also highly polished, and you'll see in the before and after photos also. What I also do is polish this shaft. You'll also see from the before and after photos how this has got imperfections. This is basically like scars or scarring from the bevel washers. So this needs to be polished so that your bevel washers are moving freely up and down this shaft and not sticking, causing sticky regulators. Okay, so I've got you back, guys. I've been about 20 minutes, half an hour or something. It was quite badly damaged, this regulator piston, but basically all I'm doing is polishing the piston shaft here just to iron out any imperfections where the bevel washers slide up and down. And then, like I say, I've just spent 5 to 10 minutes polishing this piston phase here. Like I say, don't be afraid, guys. If you go through all the grits and get to the last one, and then you inspect it under a light, and ideally a jeweler's loupe or something, and if you see any imperfections, don't be afraid to go back a couple of grits, you know, like to the pink one or whatever, pink paper, and then go over it again, and then work your way down to the finest grits. Don't be afraid to go back and revisit and go back to the coarser ones and work through them again, because now's your chance, now's your time. You've got it in bits, now's the time to make it right. And if you cut any steps or miss any steps or whatever, you're only going to regret it when you've assembled the gun and you've got a problem where you've got regulator creep still. Right, guys, okay, so happy with the reg screw, happy with the piston. It's come up quite well. Now what we're going to do is just quickly tidy up this face here. This actual face doesn't do an awful lot, it's where the bevel washers mate up to, but this particular face here can be quite critical, and this is a good example. This is what, when you screw this down into the body of the action of the rifle, there's an internal O-ring which is a bit of a nightmare to change. This surface here wants to be polished, because this is what, when you screw that in and out of the, like say, the impact action, the body of the regulator screws up and down against that O-ring. So if this is damaged, or as you can see here, scratched, don't know if the camera can pick that up quite well, but you can see the scratches there, and also you can see where the machine marks from the last thread is finished. This will be touching your O-ring, so you want to just buff all this up and work through that just to polish it up so it slides in and out nicely. So you don't have to go nuts with this, it's just really just to tidy up on the most coarse cloth. And there you go, what a difference just that is already. And then just polish this outer surface here. I must admit though, guys, this is one of the first I've done by hand. I often do them on the lathe at work. I've made a collet for this which I can put in also the piston and also the reg screw. You don't want to go nuts on a lathe or a drill or something, because you can put too much heat into the Delrin piston and you can melt it. So you've got to be cautious and be careful if you're going to do it that way. Like I say, there's no problem doing it by hand, it just takes a little bit longer. And like I say, your fingers can ache a little bit, but you know, just keep working at it and you'll get it right. See, straight away you can see, just from that camera there, it's actually removed the trailing edge of that machine screw, so that's much better already. So I'll just go on to a lighter paper just to polish it up nicely. It only takes a couple of passes once you're done. It's almost like a mirror already. And then just on this edge, this is the important edge, guys. Just polish this up, because like I say, this is where your internal O-ring mates up against the regulator body. So it's an important part. It'll make your O-ring last longer, particularly if you've taken the reg out and put it back in a few times. Perfect. One of the other things I would do, guys, with these is, this is not my idea. It was a friend of mine and he mentioned it to me. And I'm not going to do this on camera because it's a nightmare, but he had a score line inside the valve or the regulator body here. It was probably from a machining process, and it was scored on the internal wall of the regulator. Now, I know this is the wrong way, but for the purpose of the video, if your O-rings are sitting inside that regulator body and you've got a score mark, it's a pathway for the high pressure air to seep or leak past the O-ring, so you can get what you call passing, which is obviously the high pressure goes to low pressure. So inspect inside this valve body here, this regulator body, check for any scoring and get a cotton bud or a Q-tip and put some of this material and basically just, you know, like floss it if you like or whatever. Just polish the internals. This also will prolong the life of your O-rings. If you're screwing your regulator in and out, it's got a nice flat clean surface for the O-rings to seal and to move along. As you can see, this regulator's had a bit of abuse. It's had some poor Allen keys or incorrect Allen keys fitted. It's a bit chewed up, so I'll give this a scrape as well, just to make sure there's no brass filings going to drop inside, which could have been what contributed to the damage on the regulator piston itself. So I'll give this a tidy up. But yeah, it's definitely worth inspecting in here and make sure there's no scratches or heavy scoring. If it is, you just try your best to get it out with this stuff and, like I say, a Q-tip or whatever, and basically sand it out. Right, so pretty much the last thing is your bevel washers. As you can see, these have not been touched at all. This internal part here is what runs up and down the piston shaft. So what you want to do, I don't mess about with this, just go on the coarse paper and basically buff them up, sort of try and give them a little bit of a roll as well, so you can get all surfaces. Like I say, you're not doing much here apart from taking any sharp burrs off the bevel washers. You should see them straight away here, the high spots. There you go, high spots, low spots. Turn them upside down, same again. I do 3 at a time. If you can do 4 at a time, do as many as you can, and then just do 3 on the reverse side. And if you turn these over, there you go, you'll see the high spots. And all you're doing is taking any potential sharp edges off, which could pick up on the valve piston, on the regulator piston. Like I say, you can spend as much or as little time as these as you want. It's not essential you go too nuts on them. Just sort of give them a quick deburr, quick polish, a quick buff really, and that's all they need. You know, there's no need to go nuts on them. You could go that extra mile if you wanted to and actually get some of this, roll it up and, you know, sand it in and out yourself. But to be honest, you'll know from inspecting your regulator piston, if you've got scoring marks here, then you've probably got rough or burrs on these bevel washers. But I mean, I've sanded, sorry, let's rephrase that, I've polished this valve piston here, and it's absolutely smooth as silk. It's lovely. You know, it was a little bit rough before, it's absolutely lovely now, so that's good. So I'm just going to continue and polish these washers. You can go down the various grits, but to be honest guys, just don't waste your time. Get them done, get them polished like this, so you take the high spots and any potential rough spots off, and you're good to go. Right, so just quickly guys, I know I'm going to get asked this, so people are going to say, what's the orientation of fitting these bevel washers? You seem to get different views and opinions depending on who you ask. So I'm just going to show you how I do it. As most of you that's probably been following me, I've done this for a while, serviced regulators. I've had no problems. I've had 100% success, and I don't have any issues with my own guns or any of them that I've done this to. So this is how I do it. If your friend Billy or whoever does it a different way, that's fine. Just bear in mind that, like I say, I've done quite a few of these, and I've had Impacts, Mavericks, Crowns, you name it. I've done the same process and I've never had a problem. So make of that what you want. So you seem to get a variety of different bevel washers depending on the gun and the setup. This Impact's come with 9, so whether it's got 9 or 11, I'll fit them this way. That one goes on there, so it's domed this way. Then the other one goes on the opposite, so you've got a pair together. Hopefully that camera can pick that up. Then the next one, the same as the first. Fourth one, and same again. So that's 8, and then the final one goes like that. So like a back to front letter C, and then when it screws in, that's your final spring washer, which is the separate one, or the singular one on its own, not the pair. So you got a pair, a pair, a pair, a pair, and a single. I've seen them before where that single one's been on the bottom of the piston. Again, you know, make of it what you want. You can put them whichever way you want. This is the way I've done it, and I've never had a problem. So make of that what you want as well. Okay guys, just to quickly recap, we've done our Delrin piston, we've done the sealing face, and we've done the piston shaft. We've done the regulator adjustment screw. We've done the contact mating face here, along with removing the O-rings, doing the O-ring grooves and fitting new O-rings. We've done the valve or regulator body, particularly this area here, and we've given the internals a quick polish as well. We've also polished our bevel washers, tops and bottoms, so we're good to go. One thing I would just say, because I know I'm going to be asked, when you set your regulator up, there's no point doing any of this if you don't follow this next bit. When you've set your regulator up, when you install it, never adjust it under pressure, even to increase. I know you can, but it just increases the chances of regulator creep. What I do is, if I know I'm going to set it to 140 bar, I'll measure this depth here when this screw sits in the regulator body, and I'll set it back to that setting when I reassemble a gun. So on my particular gun, say it's a 140 bar regulator, I know what this measurement is, the depth of this adjustment screw. I'll set it back to just above that, which will basically make the regulator pressure lower, so it'll be 135. Because what happens over 24 hours or 48 hours, what can happen is you can get what appears to be creep, and it is creep to a certain extent, because you've highly polished these two faces on the regulator, the new faces, and what you're doing is when you put the gun under pressure, these two faces impregnate on each other and seal, and once they seal, that's where they create, you know, the long-term seal. But what you find is, because this is plastic and this is brass, the brass is harder than the plastic, they impregnate together and create a new mating surface. So if you're wanting to set up for 140 bar, I always set up for about 136, 137. Assemble a gun, well, not under pressure, fire the gun 20 times, you know, dry fire shots, and then leave the gun for 24, 48 hours, and you probably find that the regulator pressure has crept up 2 or 3 bar, perhaps even 5 bar, but that's just a initial creep, because these two surfaces are new to each other. Once this is crept over the first 12-24 hour period, it will never creep again, or it shouldn't do. But one thing I do stress is I don't adjust these under pressure at all, because it's just not good practice adjusting anything at this sort of pressure while still under pressure. You know, it's just not good practice. So there's 2 ways of doing it. You can depressurize the gun, give the adjuster screw like 1/8 of a turn to increase or decrease the pressure. Or what you can do, which I've never seen done before apart from me doing it, but it might be a common thing, but I've never seen anybody else do it. If I want 140 bar and I'm at 130, what I do is I fit my Allen key into the adjuster screw ready. I fire a shot and you get an immediate drop in air pressure. What that is obviously the gun going off and the regulator opens. So these 2 faces are no longer touching. So fire a shot, the regulator opens, and you've got about 2 seconds before they close again. So fire the shot, the regulator opens, make your 1/4 turn or 1/8 of a turn, and it will close again, and then fire a couple of dry fire shots to see where your regulator has settled. If it's 136 bar, fire another shot, these 2 mating surfaces will open, and give it another 1/8 of a turn, and it will shut. And that way you're never ever risking the chances of scarring or scoring the 2 polished faces. And once this is set, you're set. You know, I personally don't adjust this unless I have to. That's why I'm a fan of using higher regulated pressures also. So yeah, that's how I do it. Hope you've got some interest out of this and some information. Let us know how you get on. Any questions, just feel free, give us a shout, and I'll do my best to help you. Cheers guys.